Welcome, Juventini, to the All JuveCast. This is episode 127. We are going to recap the 1-1 draw between Juventus and Atalanta. A match that maybe most won't want to hear about, so I thought what better time to wear a kit that maybe most won't want to see either. Just throw it out there. But yeah, it's a frustrating one. But we're going to recap it. We're going to talk about this one. We're going to break it down. We're going to talk Pirlo. We're going to talk some of the guys' performances. And we're going to look at the Serie A race as a whole. And I'm very excited because I have a first-timer joining me. I always love when people make their debuts. I got Luke coming in on short notice as well, which I hugely appreciate. Luke, how are you doing, man? And thanks for joining on short notice.
Yeah, I'm doing well. I'm happy to be here. Been a fan of the pod for a bit, so kind of really excited to give my opinions and kind of take a step in the Juventus community. So
that's awesome, man. Day. That's awesome. I'm glad. I'm glad to have you on. And tradition around here goes, first timers, we love to hear the stories on basically why Juventus. So what made you a Juventino?
Yeah, so that's I was thinking about that today because I listened to other podcasts. I kind of knew this question was coming up. So it kind of goes to just being, I guess, an Italian American soccer fan. And growing up kind of with the 2006 World Cup, I was 8 years old. So, that's kind of was like the first like real like soccer that I watched. I remember, watching Italy win. I was in Little Italy in New York. So that was kind of my first steps being a soccer fan. And then kind of that, season after, me and my dad kind of stumbled upon Fox Soccer Channel. And we'd watch that like all the time. And then in 2008, I go to Italy with my family. And we visit our family around there. And we're kind of like buying, different souvenirs. And, I knew, players and stuff like that. And then my nonna, my grandmother, she bought me a Del Piero like necklace. And kind of from then on, it kind of grew from there. So Del Piero was on the team, Buffon was on the team, and then the only real player that was like missing of like the players that I really, really liked was Pirlo. And then, we signed Pirlo later on, and I was kind of cemented in from there. And
Nice.
Playing defense was a position I played in soccer, and then having Barzagli, Bonucci, and Chiellini all together was like just so inspirational. So that's kind of how I became
Nice,
a Juventino.
Nice. And it's always interesting when you get fans that jumped aboard after the World Cup, because there was several Juventini, obviously part of that squad, and you basically come in right through the banter era, and then now you get to just like we're jumping into this unprecedented run, and it's always interesting to like come through those seasons, right? And I guess you'd have to look into the history before that, right? And did you do that? Did you read up on like the history of the club and like the seasons past or whatnot? And what did you think during that banter era and this team that like had these players, but they just coming through a Farsapoli, I call it for sure. But what were your thoughts like through that kind of era where we were struggling to get higher than seventh?
Yeah, well, I was it was interesting for me because I was still young at that time. I didn't know there was a scandal, so kind of like the knowledge that I gained on that was a little bit like after, and then it kind of also came down to like the players I wanted to use in FIFA or like names I wanted.
Yeah.
Like I wanted to play with Buffon. So I really wish like I was, say on more social media at that time during the banter era, because knowing me now, I'd really have like just so much fun, just kind of supporting my team like really through the thick of it. But that just I don't know. I really appreciated the loyalty that a lot of the players showed, and that kind of like it gave like a different perspective on the club that like these players had like a lot of heart. Like it wasn't just about, money or any accolades. It was about really the organization. And I think like knowing that kind of was like a good like moral thing to have as like a young fan. And then it was just, kind of awesome to have that like, that piece of history, like, the ship sinking and you got like Buffon who could go anywhere, staying there. So that was pretty big kind of around
That's
that
awesome,
time.
man. Well, that's great. And thanks for sharing. Love hearing those stories. And I caught that you're a FIFA player. Xbox or PS?
I'm on Xbox.
That's beautiful because so am I. So we're gonna link
Yeah,
up and we'll have to start
we
having some
definitely will.
games.
Yeah.
All right. Without further ado, we're gonna recap this match and get into a ton of questions from Juventini. We got a lot of stuff. So yeah, without further ado, let's get into it. The starting lineups for this one. You had Szczesny in goal, De Ligt, Bonucci, and Danilo, with Cuadrado and Chiesa making up the wingbacks. In the middle, McKennie, Bentancur, and Arthur, with Morata and Ronaldo up top. I was expecting Ramsey to play a part in this midfield. I was a little bit surprised to see McKennie, Bentancur, and Arthur. However, I was totally fine with it. I thought this was a solid lineup, and I didn't have any issues with it whatsoever. I know that there was an interesting question brought up because of the starting lineup and because of these interviews that were going back and forth between obviously Agnelli and Dybala over the situation. And Dybala having scored in the last match. And it was like, do you follow up if you're Pirlo? You've got these interview things going on, but he just scored in that game. Do you follow up with him and put more faith into it? Do you go with a guy that's been in better form, more consistent, much better form, if we're being honest, more consistently? For me in this one, I mean, it's a tough one, but it's a big match. And I think it was a no-brainer to go Morata and Ronaldo up top. So, Luke, your thoughts on the lineup, and would you have started Dybala instead of Morata? I thought it was a no-brainer, and we go Morata, Ronaldo.
I mean, I think that kind of based on form, that's good. I think the idea is to get him in. Like whether just more than the 84 coming in at the 84th minute. So rather than just maybe 10 minutes, give him some more time to get just more touches on the ball. I'm okay with that. I don't think our front two performed particularly well.
No.
So seeing that, I believe like, you kind of see that maybe, all right, let's shake it up. We should introduce Dybala, especially him replacing Morata, who was kind of having some on-field antics, getting like the yellow.
But as far as like the starting lineup before it comes out, before we know any of what happens or whatnot, would you have given the nod to Dybala or Morata?
I think I would have kept it with Morata.
Yeah.
Personally, just on play. I mean, especially like after listening to some of the pods you've had before, like he plays the number 9 directly. Like he is the striker, whereas Ronaldo has more freedom, and you kind of need that balance. I feel.
Yeah.
So absolutely. I would have gone with that. I do think that having like the Ramsey or the trequartista is also like an important aspect. And I would have liked to see maybe Ramsey get another start and get more continuity with him in the team. But when I did see Artur on the lineup, I was excited to watch him. I felt bad that he kind of picked up the knock and had to
let's get into the highlights here and see. But yeah, I mean, pretty much the lineup, it was good to go. I didn't have any real issues, and I thought this would be strong for us. But we get into it. 3 minutes in, we get a really super lazy pass up the middle, cut off by Atalanta. They play it off of Zapata there and volley it into goal, but it gets stopped there. A minute later, we get a great opportunity off a mishap at the back by Atalanta, miscommunication. Morata jumps on it, sets up Ronaldo, and he absolutely skies this thing. I think he can do that 300 times in a row without skying it like that and probably burying it, probably eyes closed too. Just wasn't working today. 7 minutes later, in the 11th minute, I don't even know what to say about this because it looked like such a comedy of errors. We literally, through great work by Weston McKennie, find ourselves on a counter. He hits Morata immediately, and Morata runs in there. He absolutely muffs his pass to Ronaldo. Ronaldo still has an opportunity, tops the ball. It stops dead. It starts rolling, like it bobbles a bit, rolls to Morata, who tries to backheel this damn thing into goal and just mishits it. It barely is rolling towards wide of the goal line. And and he's looking, hoping, praying that linesman puts up his flag and he was offside anyways, which he didn't. And I'm just thinking the whole time, like, all I could say was, what the fuck? Like, between the two of you guys, it's clear on goal. Like, Morata, like, if you're going to pass it over to Ronaldo, get the damn pass there. Like, that's got to be better. And then it falls back to him. He has a chance to make up for it. And he fucking tries a back heel. That's like the perfect moment. Like, if you want to know where I was at that moment, it's that gif of Allegri ripping the jacket off and just screaming, because that was exactly me at that moment. It's just like, what are you doing? It has to be better, man. That's like, when you get opportunities like that, and we get 2 within 7 minutes, you got to capitalize, because when you're playing these teams that are going to be tough matchups, man, that's the difference between winning and losing or drawing and dropping points. It's capitalizing on those errors.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you kind of just on paper, like, write that situation out, like, a square pass one-on-one with the keeper, Morata to, Ronaldo, that goal, that's what you'd predict, 10 out of 10 times. And then, like, what really bothered me was just how Morata, handled the, he had time and he decided to, like, backheel it. And I understand, like, the idea to be, a little bit cheeky there, but like, it was eerily similar. I think, Balotelli, I think, did it in his Man City days.
Yeah.
And it was like, I've seen the video just, making fun of Balotelli, and that's, the thumbnail, but I was pretty upset when that happened, because
I cannot
that has to be a goal.
I cannot accept somebody trying to get cheeky like that in a 0-0 match against another top club in the league, and you're battling for position in the table. Like, I cannot justify that. Like, I would have lost my mind if I was Pirlo on that sideline. I would have been losing it, and he definitely would have had words. There was people making shouts to sub him off at that moment and set the precedence. And I'm like, that's a little much. I don't think I would go as far as subbing Morata out at that point, but it's that infuriating to see in a 0-0 match against a strong side like Atalanta, So, yeah, this is also the difference between watching the games live and then watching them a second time and being a lot calmer.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, when I put on the game again, and I don't know, it just, McKennie, they just set him up so well. It just should have been in. And I mean, I do get, like, saying, hey, pull him off right now, but I think better not keep him on the field, obviously, and deal with that in the locker room. I think kind of doing things like that, just, you're messing with the player's head.
It would have been far too reactionary, but it is infuriating. It's what's more infuriating is that we had that opportunity with 2 of our 2 front men on the keeper, and we didn't even get an attempt on target out of that.
Oh, yeah.
Like, that's the frustrating part. They may have counted Ronaldo's duff because it may have hit the keeper, even though he muffed it. They probably counted that as an attempt on target, though. But regardless, we move on. Atalanta's coming at us, and in the 16th minute, De Ligt makes two great plays. A cleanup slide tackle on Zapata, and then about 48 seconds later, ends up blocking Zapata's shot and just really being a wall back there. 5 minutes later, Artur goes in on a challenge with two Atalanta players, and he takes it looked like a really bad Charlie horse, basically getting hit on his the side of his quad and hammy, and he couldn't recover. So 6 minutes later, he's down and out, and Rabiot's coming in. This is probably the point where I was thinking would probably see Ramsey, because it's, again, something that we're starting to learn about this club is almost like Ramsey or Arthur, one of those two guys has to be in there or the creativity really kind of dwindles. So to see Rabiot come on, it's like, okay, now we got the Rabiot Bentancur again, and McKennie's good and he's willing to get up there or whatnot, but it isn't quite the same. Like McKennie's like that energy, that plug that kind of he'll cause havoc and whatnot, but it's not true creativity, right? So I was thinking probably see Ramsey, but not the case. We saw Rabiot, and a couple minutes later, Bentancur, able to find Chiesa, who drifted inside centrally from playing out as wingback, gets this ball off Bentancur and goes off, beats his man, pulls it to the side, and has an absolute beauty of a hit. Just a class goal for his first one in league with Juve, and 1-0, and we're off to the races. Man, what a hit from Chiesa, man. This kid's been, and I mean, he was, maybe that was his, third touch of the game, if that?
Yeah, it was the settle, the touch to the, the right, and then the shot. I think that was his game, the first few touches, at least.
Yeah, man. Like I literally, like, you don't hear the guy's name at all through that point. He's kind of buzzing around, just playing more defensively or whatnot. We weren't able to trigger him in any kind of 1v1s, and then out of nowhere, like, he just goes off on this, and I'm thinking, man, is that the first time I've heard Kiesa's name? And he just pulls this goal off. So it was good there. And that goal happens, and it was almost like a bit of a drop off from Juve, which is something the team's battled for a few seasons, getting up and then a bit of a drop. 31st minute, great save from Szczesny. And then the 37th, Malinowski coming back at it, just wide of the goal, but I'm pretty sure Tech was there. And then 40th minute, another free kick. Malinowski hammers this thing. Szczesny saves it again, parries it away. We go to halftime, and man, I was feeling that drop off after the goal, and Atalanta started to put the squeeze on, and we had a lot of just a lot of turnovers that were unnecessary. Very, very lazy passing, and lazy in a sense of players being options for other players. These were the things I was noticing the most. It was really good up until that goal. After that, there was a drop off, but the finishing had to be better. Like Ronaldo and Morata were definitely not themselves. Morata was making himself available. He was still doing the hold up stuff. It wasn't as bad, I think, as people made it out to be for Morata, but it was not good by any means. So yeah, I think I was looking for more. I was looking for them to pick that energy back up to where it was before we had scored that 1-0 goal. Yeah. What were your thoughts at halftime, and how were you feeling? Were you feeling the same way, or what were your thoughts at half?
Yeah, so I think, like, the point you touch on, like the turnovers and not being like great options for other players, I have in my notes is before Chiesa's goal, but 15th minute, Chiesa's making this great run, kind of like an underlap run. Like he's coming in, and Ronaldo has the ball and he kind of just like, turns his body, turns away and kind of tries to take it down a little bit himself. A few too many touches. And then I think 30 seconds later, some time after that, Hattenberg is taking a throw and Atalanta has possession. And, those kind of situations, I think if you watch and you kind of pay attention, there's times where it might be maybe a chemistry thing, new system, new players kind of not totally gelling yet, which you would hope to see better, later in the season, more time together. But I just really feel like, Ronaldo picking his head up and sending a ball in to Chiesa could have really had an effect on the game right there. And then, after we do score, we went into a period and you could see like we go into our low block defending like right on the 18. So you just see like kind of two lines of like, 4 and 4 just absorbing so much pressure. And, with, some good defending and some really nice saves by Tech, I think that, we kind of made it out, but it didn't need to be that way.
Mm-hmm.
We could have absorbed and then kind of played out of possession or played out of pressure a little bit. And then, with them, committing their formation commits a lot of people forward and how they play, they're very forward. We could have probably, tried to spring a counterattack, but instead we were just, anytime we did get the ball back, we were coughing it right back up. And that you go into the half and you're up a goal, but there's still just some clear things that you want corrected. And that I was happy being up at the half, but I did see kind of like, I think we need to be able to play out of the back, especially when we're pressured a little bit more. That might be a good time to try to, send a little bit of a longer pass and kind of get Morata and Ronaldo running at people. And I don't know, I think that's something maybe we got to start working on, start doing better.
Yeah, and I think that's where we really missed Arthur, was being able to absorb that pressure with him in possession. He's very, very strong at that part, and it does a lot for us in that aspect against the good teams. When they start putting that press in there and we get the ball to Arthur, he's able to protect it very, very well and help us move up the pitch. So that quality we lost. But it was a tough one, but definitely felt that drop off and starting to get a little soft on 50-50s, in my opinion, after that goal. Little bit of a let off there. So I wanted to see us get after it in the second half. I was hoping Pirlo would have a chat with both frontmen and say, guys, like, get it together here. Shorten up the leash. Would you have made any changes at half?
That's good. I think had Arthur not have come off, I think that would be more open. But with already having made the sub, in the first half, I don't think I would have gone with a halftime substitution. Personally.
Yeah. I tend to agree with you on that one. I think I would have probably waited it out a bit here. I know that there was a lot of shouts by Juventini, like guys like Quadrado and whatnot. But the thing is that it's a tough one there. What do? You take Quadrado off, you shift him to the right, and then they wanted Kulusevski in the left. Well, to be honest, I don't have a whole lot of faith in Kulusevski just yet. And Quadrado, it's funny, man. Like I get a lot of heat for coming at Quadrado quite a bit, but the thing is like this is exactly what Quadrado does. He makes quite a few mistakes every game, but then he'll make that pass. That's the difference, right? So I wasn't at a point where I want to change him. I was frustrated with a lot of lazy passing, but he was definitely not the only one that was making brutal turnovers. So, yeah, I was fine with the lineup, leaving it as is. Chiesa, keep him on the left. McKennie offered a lot. Bentancur was doing well. Rabiot had just come in 27th, so let's see where we go. Morata and Ronaldo, you got to hope that they just make it right, and probably some embarrassment on Morata's part with what happened there. hopefully he gets it right and is a little more hungrier for that goal, right? So let's go into the second half and see what happens. 49th minute. This might not seem like a big deal, but it kind of was because of where it ended up going from there. And if we remember to the last match where Rabiot backed off, taking a header that probably would have been a goal, backing off at the last second, there's a play deep in the byline there, and Rabiot's in there, and he lets off. And I felt like he was literally 2 steps from this ball in the byline. Get in there and fight in there. The defender's coming in hard too. Maybe you eat a tackle, and can get a PK or something. But like, he was pretty content in not fighting for that. And it kind of pissed me off, even though it seemed like a nothing little thing.
Yeah, well, that's a point I kind of have. What you said, 49th minute, coming up on the 56th. I think that's a point. So if I could skip ahead a little bit, but that's kind of how they scored. Just a little bit, just a little bit too soft. Like the goal, like Papu Gomez comes on, and he's there's the rumors or whatever circulating the team with him and Gasperini going on and all of that. But Papu Gomez comes on, and it's an instant change. Just you could just see how Atalanta just reacted to him being there. But the goal comes from all our center mids get just kind of dribbled past, and then they take the shot. Yeah, I mean, even Bonucci was a little soft getting to that challenge. I think as a center back, you gotta really put a little pressure there. And then, I mean, great shot, but I think that has to stop. You can't just go through our 3 center mids like that. I think that's soft play.
Yeah, you got 49th minute. I'm pissed off by him backing off in this challenge, and now it's a couple times. He did it even in the previous game. 54th minute, 53rd minute, Papu Gomez enters the match. About a minute later, Rabiot actually does get a good header off a very hard cross in from Chiesa. It just goes wide of goal. But 2 minutes later, the goal. This is a mess of a goal. We're heading up the pitch, and Morata takes a brutal touch, okay? Literally just makes it so easy for the defender ahead of him to get it. He gets it. We start trying to win this ball back. Bentancur goes in there with a challenge. He knocks the ball loose. Another Atalanta player is getting to the ball, gets it. Rabiot steps in there and, I don't even understand, barely connects with this ball, ends up, staying in front of the Atalanta player, even though Rabiot has clearly gone through and he touched the ball. And I'm like, did you go invisible for a split second? I don't understand. Yeah. And then he stops, he turns and he slides and he's right down. And then Bonucci sits back. He sits back. And I'm like, step to the shooter. Do not just let him have a go from there. Having said that, an absolute worldie of a strike, a beautiful dipping shot. It couldn't have been hit more perfect than that. But it's all the mess in front of that. Man, the fight's got to be better when it's not. Bonucci's got to step in there, and that's the one thing with him is these other guys, Chiellini, Demiral, De Ligt, they will step in. Bonucci will not. He just wants to hang back. He wants to hang back, be this distributor. The defensive side of him is not there. This was a mess of a goal to allow. Very, very frustrating. And Morata at that point, I'd probably take out, because that's just, you're losing possession in scenarios like that where it's just, there's no need. And he was on a shocker. Ronaldo was on a shocker too. Take your pick, but Ronaldo, he gets the edge because of a game changer. Am I right, or would you?
Yeah, I think with Ronaldo, I think he gets the edge kind of because he is Ronaldo, and he has the ability to just turn it on and do some amazing things. I think I would also take off Morata in that situation. I don't know why we waited so long for substitutions. I think that
And yeah, you're absolutely right. We're gonna break that down too. Here's my other question though. Or do you keep Morata because of how he plays that position that we touched on and nobody else plays it? Like, do you risk losing that pivot, that focal point,
Mhm.
to keep Ronaldo on there? Or do you bring in Dybala and play the three of them?
Yeah, well, I personally I really liked seeing the three of them up top. But also, you make the really good point, which kind of we should talk about later down the road, is that we do need somebody who could say replace the role of of the nine, and we only have one nine or one person that even has
Yeah.
the traits of a nine. So kind of if you go with Dybala and Ronaldo, the problem there is that they both like to kind of come back a little bit deeper and not kind of sit on the last guy back. So you kind of do have that problem there. You have two front men who are both kind of underperforming, and there's not really necessarily a like for like substitution for both of them. So putting on Dybala for Morata, there's going to be a little bit of a problem there. Putting on Dybala for Ronaldo, again, another problem there. The three of them, now you have two underperforming and one coming off the bench. So it's a difficult situation that I don't necessarily can be solved. I don't think could be necessarily solved in the in a substitution, but rather maybe in January.
Yeah, and I mean, in this one, at that point, I'm pretty frustrated. I don't think I would have done the trident of the three of them, and the only reason is because of how Atalanta plays, and I wouldn't have trusted it defensively. I wouldn't have trusted having all three of those guys, Morata, Dybala, and Ronaldo, out there for the defensive aspect. I liked having the three midfielders. I would have brought on Ramsey for sure. I would have found a way to get Ramsey in the game. I would have brought Dybala on as well and probably swapped Morata. And that's not to say that Morata was worse than Ronaldo. They were both pretty bad. If I had to be honest, by the end of this thing, I think Ronaldo was worse. Probably the worst I've seen Ronaldo play for Juve, period. But yeah, it's a tough one. That was a frustrating goal. We move on, and a couple minutes later, this game's starting to get chippy. Romero, I thought, very, very lucky not to be sent off on a challenge on Morata. A little bit of a late one there. Morata did not take that one well. You see a couple minutes later, Morata taking a bit of a clip from Hetabor and him reacting. Chiesa ends up drawing a PK on Hetabor, and Morata gets a yellow from all the consequence. He's yelling at Gasparini. Pirlo and Gasparini are getting into it on sidelines. The game's getting heated. Morata's like, now he's on a yellow too, and I'm thinking, okay, it's time. Like, it's time now. It's the 59th minute. You're just getting a yellow. You're getting heated, and you haven't been playing up to the snuff. We're about to get a PK, so Ronnie's staying in. CR ain't going anywhere. Let's get Dybala out there right after this PK. CR steps up. There's no way in my mind I see this happening, but he gets stopped. Golini reads it right, guesses, lays out, and Ronaldo didn't put it right in the corner, but it wouldn't have mattered. Golini was set on going that way, and even if he put a hard load to the corner, I'm pretty sure Golini would have made it there. So that's frustrating and just adds to the woes here. But 61st minute, we get a beautiful string of passes, a fast one finding McKennie, who quickly lays it off for Morata in stride. Morata takes a little bit of a touch because of where the pass landed. He ends up duffing this thing and hits the ground, bounces up, and Golini's still able to get a palm to it and parry it away. This was a huge save. I thought for sure this was goal. And Yeah, no such luck. The game continues going back and forth here. But 65th minute now, Gosens gets to a cross on the back post. Quadrado and back post coverage is just it's not a good thing. It's just one of those traits that we just have to deal with him playing that position. Gosens gets to this thing and just lobs it across goal and wide. 72nd minute, great save by Szczesny on a header off a corner kick. I believe it was Romero. And then we just get into this flurry where we look exhausted, and it's right around that time because Szczesny makes the save on the header, and then we simply cannot get out of our area. We had probably about 3 opportunities to get this ball out. At one point, CR7 comes back, wins the ball, and plays it right back into our area for Atalanta. And they continue to come at us. And you look at CR7 and he's got his hands on his knees and he's hunched over like he's so disappointed. I'm like, well, man, get back and fight. Like, let's drive them to get the ball back here. Like, pick yourself up here, man. We got to feed off of your energy.
Yeah.
But we just made a mess. We couldn't get it out of there. Luckily, we come out unscathed. 74th minute, Sandro comes in for Chiesa. Not the change I was expecting, to be honest. I'm fine with, like, if that's going to be the change, that's okay. But why is it the only change in a game where both your front men are struggling? Ronaldo is really, really struggling, and that was a shocker to me, that change. But continue on. We start to kind of come back, try and fight a bit, but at this point, through the 72nd on, I started seeing us lose a lot more of these 50-50s, you know? That's why I touched earlier on Rabiot being soft and us losing these 50. We started losing more and more and more of these. But the 78th minute, we were able to come back on a counterattack. Danilo takes a big shot, stopped by Golini. And then again, Atalanta just comes back at us. Gomez starts having rips in the 82nd. Szczesny making a save. And then the 84th minute, Dybala gets subbed in. And you can't help but think, what, like, really? Really? And I mean, you were thinking it the whole time. I was thinking it since the 60th minute. Why is Dybala not in there with a half hour left? Like, 75th minute. Why is Dybala not in there? Why is Sandro for Chiesa the only change? 84th minute, Dybala in. So he literally made 2 subs because the one for Artur was an injury.
Yeah,
so he literally he's got 5 subs and he made 2. One was because of an injury. He made 3. One was because of an injury. And he had 2 forwards, both the front men, playing an absolute shocker. We see the match end, 1-1 draw. Many, many frustrations there for Juventini. Points dropped again. We had our chances. Atalanta had their chances too. We do have to respect the fact they're a strong opponent. This wasn't going to be an easy game. However, man, it's a tough one. I feel like Pirlo really, really dropped the ball on this one. I can't help but feel that way. Players and performances aside, you know, I feel there was several guys that were not up to the intensity of the match. They weren't meeting the match requirements. But having said that, Pirlo, he didn't have a read. I've said this steady throughout so far this season. He seems to just not have that feeling for what needs to change. I think a lot of it has to do with just trying to be the player's coach and not being able to separate that.
Yeah.
You know, I think he's got to shorten the leash with the guys because he's given far too much of a benefit of doubt to guys, and he's got to get the reins back, because if it's not benefiting the squad as a whole, then it's hurting us. And right now, he's got to pick it up on these subs, man. There's no reason when you have 5 substitutions and you have guys that are not playing well and they're both your forwards, there's no reason why Dybala comes in the 84th minute. And it almost makes you feel like, what are they doing? Are they – I'd hate to say this, and I don't believe it for a second, but some Juventini were throwing it out there, and it's like, it's almost like Agnelli's like, well, no, Dybala's not going to play. If he does, you throw him in late or something. You know, I would never believe that, but it makes you think, like, why on earth was this guy not in the game sooner?
I mean, absolutely. I mean, you got a lot of like transfer rumors and, you know, it's all noise, but I mean, at the same time, like if you want to be a good, you know, manager of players and understand like the psychology of a player, like, you know, putting him in at the 84th minute doesn't necessarily silence anybody, you know, after the game. It only adds to the questions. And as you said earlier, like 60th minute, the, you know, penalty and Morata's yellow. One, writing that down on my notebook, you know, to keep track, was penalty for, like, Juventus earns a penalty, Morata has a yellow. Very, very odd stat right there. But I think that's exactly the time you start changing. And not even necessarily like just a double substitution, you know, like definitely like inject some fresh legs into the squad. Like it's, you know, we have a very kind of packed schedule, lots of games coming, like, you know, on short rest, and why not, you know, get people in where a team that's been rotating a lot, keep that going even through games. And then, as you said later, we're looking tired. We're looking, you know, like a little bit exhausted. And a really great way to do that would be to get, you know, people off the bench and get, you know, fresh legs that, you know, other players can kind of like lean on, that can cover ground like easier. But I mean, in regards to Dybala, I think it's ridiculous for him to get in at the 84th minute. Kind of going back to the substitutions, like I don't really understand the whole Alexandro for Chiesa, and you bring up a good point. Pirlo being like a player's coach. I think in the regard that he's, you know, it's his first coaching job, coaching Juventus after, you know, being the U23, you know, manager for a couple days, and then kind of making the move to the senior team without, you know, much of a resume as far as coaching goes. I think he needed to earn the locker room, which is kind of, I guess, what we could say the explanation is. But at the same time, these guys are professionals, and you have to treat them as such. Like you have to really kind of set expectations and hold them to it, because, you know, there's kind of a fine line that you have to walk. And I'm not sure if it's necessarily being drawn in the right spots.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing, right? It's going to be something that it's going to be a question that's going to be asked of him all season long, especially if things like this happen. And we're going to get into it a little bit deeper, but real quick, your man of the match for Juve. Who was it? Who'd you pick?
I think this is difficult. I my gut reaction, I really want to say, would be McKennie. I'm a big McKennie fan now. He had some pretty key passes in the final third. Kind of one of the only players that I feel like, and you really don't look at him and see, like, you know, creativity in the final third, but I think he did have some good passes. But I think an argument could be made for De Ligt really keeping us in it, and same with Szczesny coming up with some huge saves. So
yeah,
I'm hard pressed. I want to give an answer, but I don't know. It's got to be one of those three for me.
I had Bentancur, De Ligt, Szczesny up there. McKennie had a good game, I thought, for sure. He's right in the mix too. I'd be hard pressed to pick out of those three. I'd probably give it to Szczesny, he was pretty solid. Made some big saves. Kept going. Looked up to it as far as command from the back too, which I've kind of criticized him a bit for. So he looked a bit on today. So it was good. If I had to give an edge, probably to him. And speaking of man of the match and stuff, we're just getting some thoughts from Juventini post match. And Josh Fontaine puts in, imagine if De Ligt wasn't in there today and we had someone like Rugani in there, we would have been eaten alive. Yeah, De Ligt was a monster. But that's what we've come to know. Like, the kid's a beast, man. Absolutely great addition. Love De Ligt. Sam Ferguson, his post-match comments, some players think they were playing five-a-side with friends and not a competitive title race. Rabiot's no intensity and offering something near zero. Juan doing stupid things and Pirlo late subs. Yeah, pretty decent little rant there. And I mean, kind of touched on everything. I mean, you could definitely question the intensity. And when we were going through that phase where we were just losing a lot of 50-50s, and Juan made a lot of mistakes, but there was a lot of other players making a lot of mistakes too. Pirlo and the subs. There's been a disconnect there all season. It's got to get better. Has to get better. Daniel, worst game from Morata and Ronaldo together this season. Pirlo should have brought on Dybala 15 minutes earlier despite his form. All-around shit show. He always scored a great goal, though. I don't think it's fair. I mean, Dybala 15 minutes earlier despite his form. I would argue even earlier than that, than 15 minutes earlier. And his form has been getting better, to be honest. If we're being honest here, I think his form has been getting better. I've been noticing a difference, and it's coming. Is it anywhere near what we expect from Dybala? No. But could you imagine if Dybala played as bad as either Morata or Ronaldo did today?
No way. I think
it would be insane.
It would be terrible. I think that also looking at it, like, who are our, like, main attackers, not wingers, but just attackers. We really only have Morata, Ronaldo, and Dybala. So we have to build Dybala's form. It's advantageous to us to give him more time because, 6 minutes and then stoppage time isn't enough for him to, get enough touches to get in the groove of things. It's, not that it's, worse than keeping him on the bench, but, we got to, look at this as, not special treatment, but almost a little bit of an investment in our depth of our squad is giving Dybala like an opportunity to become an impact player, build the confidence, and get touches in what is a kind of a high stress, intense game. So I do think he should have been brought on 15 minutes earlier. And yeah, despite his form versus, without that, little disqualifier there.
Yeah. And, Alcor 7, his question was, why does Pirlo not learn from his substitutions? I don't think we can use the season as long as an excuse. Like, we're close to January. So Alcor 7 obviously agreeing that there's a disconnect there with the subs. And I'm going to flat out take it to another level and ask you a question. Does Pirlo have the balls to sub Ronaldo? Because we saw Sarri do it a couple times in quick succession. I agreed with those substitutions at the time when Sarri made them. And we saw the aftermath. I think it was more than just a substitution because I don't think Sarri and Ronaldo got along whatsoever. I think Sarri had many issues with players that came out after.
Yeah.
But yeah, is Pirlo ever going to be able to do that outside of like a 90th minute, and stoppage time sub for Ronaldo? I don't know, because I don't think he's got it in him to be able to do that. I don't think he's going to be that coach. And I think if we're looking at this now, he's already given guys the benefit of the doubt all the time. So, this question, why does Pirlo not learn from his substitutions? I really just think he is trying his best. It's almost like he's all of these guys' friend and not really the manager in
Yeah.
certain circumstances. And I can't help but feel that way. And that I really, really question why he can't get these guys off when they need to. And if he's almost like overthinking it himself, like he's going to put them in some kind of funk by subbing them and that they're not going to be able to recover. Like he's almost like hurting them to sub them, but like he's hurting the team, man. He's got to get better at it. But what's your thoughts on it?
Well, I mean, the point of like, at some points he's their friend and, not their manager. Like yeah, he's their friend. Like he outside of soccer, like they're friends. So I think that's like kind of a hurdle that's kind of not really talked about all too much, but one being the new coach and then being kind of like a peer of many of the players. So when it comes like specifically to Ronaldo, like, sorry making the subs that he did and dealing with the backlash, like that's kind of one thing, but you'd really hope, and I'll be disappointed if to see that not happen. Like I want to see that Ronaldo is treated like just any player and is, has to work for every minute that he gets on the field. And I really hope that Pirlo gets to the point where he will pull off Ronaldo for a poor performance or for, maybe not tracking all the way back or not, giving all the effort that he really thinks he needs to. But I haven't seen it yet, and I just hope that changes. I need that to change, to have faith in Pirlo as a manager going forward, because that is huge. You are the boss. You need to, again, like set expectations and achieve them, or make a change to try to achieve them.
Yeah. And, I got to set this straight because I can already, imagine what the Ronaldo fans are, going to explode with what I was saying there. But here's where it is Ronaldo out of this one for me was worse than Morata. Is Ronaldo a bigger game changer? Absolutely. But again, when you look at this team, it is so crucial for that number 9 in this setup. And that's the reason I think, if Pirlo was going to make the better move, it would have been to get Dybala on and Ronaldo off.
Yeah.
And keep Morata there. But Morata, the only reason, like, this was a tough one. Now that you break it down, because Morata had that yellow, he was getting emotional and getting loose. And it's like, man, is he going to get himself carted out? It's a tough one. But at the end of the day, man, like, he didn't, like, Dybala or Pirlo didn't get anything done. He just subbed Morata in the 84th.
Yeah, that's
he literally didn't act on any of it. So that's the part that's super frustrating. But if it came down to it, it's a question I'm asking is, would he be able to not, leave Ronaldo out there? Does he have it in him? It's almost the same as some people are asking, really criticizing Bonucci. It's been a steady criticism because, the drop off there defensively, and they're asking, does he only make this team because he's Italian? Like, this starting 11, like, what's going on? We have some injuries at the back that we know about. But would you feel more comfortable with De Ligt being at the heart of the defense, even if it means Sandro and Danilo right now while we wait for Demiral, Chiellini? Mind you, Chiellini was in the lineup today. So he was on the list. He was there. He was dressed, but far too soon to get him in. And let's be honest, I knock on wood. Hopefully it doesn't happen, but he's probably going to get injured again.
Yeah, that's something you don't really want to. You you don't want to even like think it, but it's there because it's in the recovery that
it's probably going to happen again. Unfortunately, like his body's just giving out on him. But there you go. It's like, do you feel confident in a back line that's got De Ligt and then Sandro and Danilo on either side to like sit Bonucci? Like Bonucci's. He's hurting us, man. He's hurting us. And this passing out of the back is starting to get really old for a lot of Juventini because honestly, in this system, it doesn't even play a factor. It hasn't even played a factor whatsoever.
Yeah. Well, you see, like, I think that the Bonucci spot in the team or in the back line is there with like Pirlo's idea, like kind of coincides with Pirlo's idea of total football. Because Bonucci does have like the passing ability, although we haven't really, I don't think, seen it all too much. I didn't see him do very much at all today. But I think the idea of having distributors from the back line and everybody kind of being involved in all stages, I think that's where Bonucci gets his spot in the team. Versus putting, say, another like natural fullback playing, left center back in a 3-back. I think that could have the potential to expose us a little bit, but that's not even saying that Bonucci isn't exposing us. So, again, I think that's a difficult decision. It goes back to Pirlo. Like, does Pirlo have the balls to, pull Bonucci out? Sit Bonucci to play somebody maybe roughly out of position until his play gets better, until Chiellini can step in or until Demiral can step in. So I think that as much as it's on Bonucci for not having the performances that we would expect or should get, it's also then kind of trickles back down to Pirlo as a manager, Pirlo and his control of like the team or how much he wants to be active in, play, like, getting these players to do what he needs them to do. So I think that's kind of like the heart of the issue. Like that's kind of, the symptom that's kind of causing all these other problems.
Yeah. It's a tough one though, like this total football thing too, right? Like, if I'm looking at the characteristics of these other guys, and even if you're factoring in Bonucci in this, still it goes back to this passing ability. Yeah. It's always going to go back to the passing ability.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't see this, crazy gap between the other guys that play there and Bonucci when it comes to even that trait. The only difference is he will try those long passes occasionally that still have a low percentage of completion rate.
Yeah.
So De Ligt is capable of making those same passes. Like we've seen him do that. I mean, that goal Dybala scored, that was an aerial ball from De Ligt at the back, finding McKennie, who did a great flick on. So it's like De Ligt can do this. Danilo's actually been really good.
Oh, yeah.
On either side of the center back. I really like Danilo in behind Cuadrado on the right. But, man, I can't help but think this goal today that we allowed, if De Ligt's playing in the heart and he's changing places with Bonucci there, that goal doesn't happen. At least it doesn't happen like that. Yeah. Because De Ligt closes that down and eats it up.
Yeah. I mean, as much as I agree with that statement, I think that we got to look almost a little bit further to that, which I think is almost a bigger issue for Juventus, is that there is no reason that we have 3 of our center mids within 10 yards of less than that, like 5 yards of the ball, and they get a shot off. Like as 100%. Our center back, Bonucci, should have stepped up. I think De Ligt would have, even Demiral would have, and made the challenge and maybe taken a deflection at the very least. But I think I'm more worried that we have 3 center mids that couldn't make that tackle. And I think that's almost a larger issue to fix.
Yeah, well, if you watch that play, that's a tough one, man. I don't know if I can go at the mids for it because Bentancur gets engaged. He breaks the ball up free. McKennie's on his opposite side. So he's on his side occupying his zone. Rabiot comes in, makes an absolute fucking mess of the thing. So really, Bentancur was engaged. He's on the ground after his challenge goes on. Play goes on. Rabiot should cut it. It should have been an easy cutoff. It didn't work out for him, and then he hits the ground. There's nobody there. Bonucci's there. There's that gap. Bonucci's happy to sit back and let that guy have a hit. In this one, he gets stung for it because it's an absolute worldie.
Oh, yeah.
That's another thing, too, is it's a hell of a shot. It's a hell of a goal. A lot of guys are going to take a hit from there, and they either miss goal or Szczesny's got more than enough time to save it because of where it's at. But the fact is Bonucci backed off and backed off and backed off. And it was just like there was no intent to try and go and stop that whatsoever. So it's frustrating. It's a tough one. I don't know if I go at the mids for that. What I would go at the mids for and not really go at them for is what we're missing, and a run writes in. Do we really have any clue what to do in the final third? For me, there's still one glaring missing trait, characteristic, set of abilities, which is creativeness out of the central mid area. Arthur, I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it since day one. Everybody says he's going to be this creative guy, but I want to see it. Now there's Juventini saying you're not going to see it because he's not playing in his true position or whatnot. Well, I don't know, but I've talked to Barca fans that say it's not there. This creative Arthur, like it's not there. It's not who he is. So now we move on to, you got guys Bentancur and Rabiot, hard workers. Rabiot's solid, box to box. He'll work. Lately he's been funny, not fully committed in 50-50s, but he's still overall really, really good, in my opinion. Bentancur, really, really good. Solid mid. He's had a couple great performances now, but these guys miss that cutting edge pass right in the crucial area when we need it the most to generate these chances. Key passes.
Yeah.
They don't have that.
I kind of have a comment and then a question for you to this. Do we have any clue what to do in the final third? I'm not sure if we can definitively say that we do yet because I think we need to be more creative. I was excited to watch our third play today because, I just wanted I'm rooting for him. I want to see him develop into the player that we need him to be, but takes the knock and he's out. But he plays very laterally and negative. But oh man, what was my question to you? Yes, it's this. So with Rabiot and Bentancur, as they've had good performances for us, how many of the round of 16 teams, those 16 that are in the knockout stage for the Champions League finals, what teams do they break into their starting 11? How many of them? Because
for Ramsey and Rabiot?
For Bentancur and Rabiot.
Oh, man, that's tough. I'd have to start taking a look here and seeing at the clubs, but probably let's pull it up and see. I mean, not a lot, I don't think, to be honest.
Yeah, and that's kind of the point. I don't necessarily need a number, but that's the point I think I'm trying to make is we do get good performances out of them.
Yeah.
But I think that this a big issue with the club is that I think they would be awesome players to take off the bench. Granted that we need a sub better anyway, but take off the bench in the 60th minute and just inject new legs. McKinney is, just has a great work rate. Have him run his, himself into the ground. You just run crazy for 60 minutes and then, throw Rabiot in, but have other people in the midfield to kind of raise our I don't know, just our overall talent level.
I mean, here's the thing. This question, is do we really have any clue what to do in the final third? There's games where it looks like for sure we do. We know exactly how we're going to create opportunities, and you start seeing this glimpse of Pirlo's setup, what he's trying to achieve. And then there's games where it doesn't really happen, but we have to remember we're playing against opponents, and you have to factor in what the opponents do. So Atalanta did a great job of neutralizing our wingbacks. Like, neither Cuadrado nor Chiesa could get as involved as we probably would have liked them to, So really, if you even think about, we talked about on Chiesa's goal. It was probably the first time he got involved. And where was he? He was at the top of the area centrally, not even where he should be positionally. So it's like he had to completely abandon where the heck he was just to kind of get involved. And it worked to our benefit. But yeah, there's times when Pirlo's got to figure this out and make some changes. I thought this game called for Ramsey to be in there, but you're absolutely right when you talk about these guys. I mean, this is a question Antonio, a listener from Scotland, brought up a couple episodes ago, and I brought it up, and he goes, if you look at our 15-16 squad, or sorry, 14-15 squad, and you look at that lineup, and he goes, how many midfielders do we have now that make that lineup? Not a single one, man.
Yeah.
Not a single one breaks into that midfield. And, not to rag on these guys, because I think as a group, as a collective, when you get the right pairings, it has the ability to be great as a unit.
Absolutely.
Okay? So these guys individually might not be these game breakers, but I don't want that. I want the team to succeed together as a whole, but it has to make sense. So what Pirlo, and this has been something I've been shouting for pretty much, it's got to be a whole month now, but this setup is so dependent on the personnel and his combinations. Okay, like in the middle of the park, as soon as you got Bentancur, you got Rabiot, and you got McKennie, and who's the creative there? You could see it unfolding. You could see it happening. Like, where's the creativity in that midfield? None of them.
Yeah.
And the problem is, even when you got Arthur, there's a bit more creativity. I haven't seen it break out into the point where I'm like, yeah, there's one of our creative guys. It's not there. And Ramsey, it's there, but it's hit and miss based on whether it's instructed to him by Pirlo or it's how he plays the role. But, when he's high up forward, whatnot, he renders himself useless in the creativity phase because he just plays as high as our forwards.
Yeah.
And there's nothing happening there. When he starts from the middle, moves up, kind of goes side to side, just creates that link up, it's great. But the problem is if you get Dybala out and you have a couple guys trying to be that link up, it turns into a mess. And we see that with Kulusevski and Dybala. So this whole thing, while I agree, we probably don't have guys that just walk into these lineups across Champions League. They have the ability to make a solid unit in the midfield. But we are lacking a guy that's just going to grab the game by the scruff of the neck out of the middle and be that game changer out of the middle of the park. We have guys that can compose a solid unit, but we don't have that set of characteristics that's just the guy that's going to have that vision, the guy that's just going to sniff out that goal from a pass, it's just not there. And it's something that we have to address. Obviously, we talked about, Papu Gomez was going into his drama. I did it on my Buonasera Bianconeri episode. I talked about that drama that's unfolding there too. And Abdul actually writes in, like, is Papu a viable choice for us? There's also, everybody's heard about Pogba Dybala swap.
Yeah.
And Abdul also writes, like, is it fair to say a Ramsey and or Rabiot swap for Pogba? Nothing against Rabiot, he puts in there. So maybe he has something against Ramsey. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, right.
But, is Papu a viable choice for us? For me, I mean, I think he's a great player. No doubt. I think he's 32 years old. I mean, it would really depend. There's context there. Is it a piece we can add on for a year, finish this year, like a stopgap to get some creation out of there? Okay. I'd much rather thinking for the future, so an Awar would be solid. I think he's got some traits he can drive out of the middle. A ton of shouts for Locatelli.
Yeah.
But I see Locatelli as the guy that's going to hang back as your holder. So now all of a sudden you bring in a holder. He's got solid passing range. He can make those passes, but is it enough? Is it the guy that's going to grab this game by the scruff of the neck? Is he going to be able to drive out of there? I see him as a holder sitting back, a deep lying player. What do we do to Arthur then?
Yeah.
Kind of render him like somewhat useless, and we just kind of made a decent commitment there. So it's tough. I like Locatelli as a player.
Yeah, I think the question really there is, like, what's our goal, or what's, Agnelli's goal for Juventus at the end of this year and in the next 5 years? Because if he's trying, like, Papu Gomez is not a long-term fix. And this kind of a criticism I have of our management is I don't think that we've necessarily always added the correct piece for the long-term goal. I think we've maybe gone for maybe more of the flashier item.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll probably ruffle some feathers with this, but quickly, I think maybe that also has to do with when we picked up Ronaldo. Was that the best thing? And yeah, so I think that Papu Gomez, I think he's exciting. I love watching him play. I don't really know if he's the greatest option, because it's not necessarily a long-term fix.
Yeah.
And even going back to that too, why we have kind of these personnel issues is in the past 3 years we've had 3 different managers with a bunch of different ideas. So how are we gonna go into a mercato and try to buy players and try to build the team the way we need to, when we don't necessarily know who's going to be there come next season and what we're going to play next season and all of that. With the Pogba and Dybala, that's very tough. I want Dybala at Juventus, and I want Dybala playing very, very well. If you swap him, yeah, you might fix maybe a midfield problem, but now you really you got to go out and buy, two people to go up top. And I don't necessarily love the idea we bought back Bonucci, we're bringing back Morata, bring back Pogba. Let's get Marquisio out of retirement. Let's bring in Vidal and have Pirlo lace him up and, get the 2015 team back. I don't necessarily totally I'm just principle almost.
I'm not against just bringing guys back. I'm not necessarily against the idea if it makes sense for the club. You touched on something in there that is absolutely right, and it's getting the pieces we need for the team. And that's the one thing when you look at this midfield in general, it's we have guys that are the same,
Yeah.
So it's we've built this team, but there's still a set of traits and skills missing. There's still a guy missing, in my opinion, is missing. We also don't have coverage at the top on this team that we've set up. If Morata goes down, you have absolutely nobody that could play the 9.
Yeah.
So this whole Dybala, Pogba stuff, whatnot, I would love to have Pogba back. People know I
Oh,
would
yeah.
love to have
Yeah.
Pogba back. But to do it in January, again, now you don't have the coverage up top that you need, in my opinion. So does he have the traits that we need? 100% he has the traits we need. 100%. If you look at this team and you are saying you don't want Pogba back, I honestly, I can't agree with it, because he walks into this club easily
Oh,
stepping
yeah.
on that midfield. It's laughable to say otherwise.
Yeah.
Okay. And you touched on too individually, like you walk through these guys, where are they going, like on these top clubs? So to say even this, like, is it fair to say a Ramsey or Rabiot swap for Pogba? My God, I mean, if we're talking in January, well, now we're a couple guys thin for one, right? So that would leave us what? Pogba. And first of all, it would never happen. Like, we've given these guys some good wages. Like Ramsey, I can't see these teams, like Man U's not going to be in for that. Man U, when they get rid of Pogba, is going to get a payout. Like, it's going to be a payout, or it's going to be a top tier player. So that's just the way it's going to be. But just hypothetically, if we were to move these two guys, you bring in Pogba, now you got Pogba, Benta, Arthur, McKennie. So now you got 4, and you're probably going to be running a 3-man midfield. No, I didn't include Sami Khedira, and yeah,
No, don't talk to me about that guy.
So this is the thing, is like, I honestly, I don't expect anything in January. Maybe a number 9, you know?
Yeah.
I honestly, I don't think much is going to happen. The revenues are still the same. You know, sure, we pulled in some money off Champions League. We still got a big deficit. I don't see a whole lot happening there. You know, I'm not going to, in the summer, things could probably happen, but in January, I'm not expecting much. Maybe Juve gets coverage from a number 9. That's about it. But you're absolutely right in what you're saying, and I agree with you. They're not necessarily building the team with what makes the most sense. It seems to be flashy objects, bigger names, like just more known names. And we seem to be missing out on some pretty good developing talents. But the project is young too, which is another thing why I don't necessarily believe in the Papu Gomez thing being a viable choice for us. I like him as a player, but what are we really doing there? He's not going to just join a club for one season. So we add him in, what, you want to add him this season or something in January. Well, are we at the point where Papu Gomez is going to make or break us? As I don't really see it, to be honest. So hold out, go for something that's going to be more long-term, and move on from there. But the question is, and this is something that this team, you know, now that we're getting close to January, and Juventini are talking, and we've got some frustrations in some of the rants earlier, and people saying that, you know, no, this feels just like sorry or whatnot. Do you see progress? Is this team progressing? And, you know, for me, I saw a tweet that made me laugh. I had to retweet it, and I had to just say, pump the brakes, calm down. It literally said, Juve's season is over. If we can't keep the pressure on Milan, I can't see us, you know, doing this, and, you know, blah, blah, blah. I had to laugh. We're 12 games into Serie A. We're 4 points behind Milan. Okay. And believe me, I understand the frustration. I understand that there's draws that we're getting that should be victories. But in terms of this team progressing, I believe we are. I think, like, if you look at this game, even, what are the odds both Morata and Ronaldo put up stinkers like that? This game, it's frustrating, but it was like literally just execution and some misfortune. That's the way it goes. It feels more to me like we've been unlucky, to not be getting what we should be getting as far as results, but we've also had some lapses. That is normal with a team that's going through quite a transition, a completely different new setup. It's the third coach in 3 years. They had Allegri, he's gone, Sarri's gone, and now we're with Pirlo. Whole different new ideas, a mess of new players. It was always going to take time. Are we making progress? I could see progress. I personally see progress. I'm personally still optimistic because I believe when we get it right, it's been so good. And I honestly, I have faith, and it's so early, everybody. It's really, really early still. I know it feels later in the season. You're talking about it January as far as those terms, but in the grand scheme of things, it's early in Pirlo's tenure still to really say like there's no progress. We've already gotten to a point where where each player needs to play. That's half the battle. Usually a guy comes out of preseason and has a good concept of that. We're just getting there now. It's a little bit late. You might call it slower one up, but we have made that progress at least. In terms of generating chances, again, this is a frustrating game. But we literally went through matches where we would not get attempts on target until the 70th minute. We saw that under Sarri a few times. We saw that under Allegri in his last year. It's better. We are sometimes positionally struggling and give up counters and whatnot, but it's going to be part of that growth, and we are opening up our play more. So it's just natural that happens. But I do see progress. Luke, do you see progress in this club?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think that like kind of, going for the 10th Scudetto in a row, like we kind of have this like, we've been treated well by our club for the past 9 years, and like it's hard to maybe not in December see us at the top of the table and just expect to just coast right on through to the rest of the season. But I mean, I see progress from exactly what you said. Like we have a little bit of a better idea where players are going to be. We're kind of seeing the system, the formation at least like even out a little bit. We're not as just trying new things. We're not as experimental, and that's progress right there. And I think that as things slowly build, it might be more clear. But I do see progress now. We are getting better, and this is something that I think needed to be done for a while, because it's been a few years since I think we were the team that would beat, say, the team we were in 2015 or the team we were in 2017. And I think we needed to not totally hit the reset button, but kind of make our average age younger and kind of start building a project that maybe might not have the instant gratification of just tearing through teams and flying through the table, but will give us a better result down the line, which is what I think our goals should be. Obviously 10th Scudetto, like mandatory, but also kind of keep some continuity so that we can build off of that and get the Champions League one day. Like that's something that I think we need to like really set our sights on, and maybe deny ourselves some of the gratification of like very quick, easy wins and just coasting on through.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I agree. I absolutely agree. I see the progress. The biggest thing for me, I don't want to become this coaching carousel club.
Yeah.
Like if we want any type of continuity, like performance-wise or stuff like that, we're going to have to commit. We're going to have to commit. And again, we saw a lot of Pirlo out shouts right now. And you've got this little battle going on where people are saying, well, look, we're still undefeated. And people are saying, yeah, we're undefeated, but all we're getting is draws. And it's just a lot of frustration. And I get it. I totally get it. But it's growing pains. It's growing pains. But the thing is that there is growth there. If you really break it down, the growth is there. For sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, I want there to be continuity. Like, as much as even earlier in the podcast, like, I've been critical of Pirlo. I think he needs to be here next season, and we just need to know, like, almost, whatever result we have to, keep our managers, because I think you look at, clubs that are really strong and are strong year to year to year. They have some of that solidity. With a system, or at least just the coach as a whole, and the management has put faith in Pirlo, and I think that us as fans is got to back him a little bit and just really be a part of a project that we haven't really seen for a while. We haven't been a club in a project, and I think, like you said, being a coaching carousel would be, I think that would be so detrimental to any big lofty goal that we have.
Yeah, and sometimes you got to take a step backwards in order to move forward. So, the streak is going to come to an end at some point.
Oh, yeah.
But again, if we look at Pirlo and what he's doing so far, I mean, I'm definitely not at the point where I would say Pirlo out. I think far too premature in my opinion. And really, I think he's just got to work on that feel for the matches and really like get in tune with that. That's my one criticism. Like, yeah, he's tinkered a lot with lineup, whatnot, but he seems to be on it now, finally, as far as where the guys need to go. But this disconnect with the subs simply cannot continue. He needs to be able to turn the tides with his subbing. And he hasn't been able to do that for us yet. Sarri, while he was criticized for basically having the same subs at the same time intervals every single match, it was like clockwork, man. 60th minute, it was a sub, 65th, whatever, and then 75th. So while he worked that way, I also feel he did not have the options that Pirlo does, So it's kind of tough. The setup, though, still a question. People still, I'm starting to come around on the whole Pirlo setup and how he sets us up and how he plays it, because, again, when it's great, it's really, really good. It's just that fine tuning. But the biggest thing, and again, it's that midfield, and we are missing a guy, in my personal opinion.
Oh, yeah.
Whether that happens in January or not is yet to be seen. I mean, we'll find out. I personally doubt it. I think we're going to have to go through and work with what we got and go from there. But we'll see what happens. We get there's a mess of games. Short turnaround. We've got Parma now on Saturday, and we'll see what happens lineup there. We're waiting for Demirel to get back. Chiellini is now back in the lineup. So, yeah, we'll see what happens. Ronaldo, I would expect Ronaldo to go on an absolute tear now after this one. So that's good news, because a pissed off Ronaldo is always good for Juve. So after this one today, yeah, I would expect some goals. I would expect a hell of a performance from him. I hope Morata feeds off that too. I believe he will. Dybala has been getting better and better each time we see him, so I feel okay there. I want to ask you, Luke, as we wrap up here, last question. Yeah. The whole Dybala-Agnelli scenario with the interviews and whatnot. Yet fans on both sides there, some fans were saying, well, why does Dybala need to say anything and whatnot? And other people were criticizing Agnelli and saying, why are you speaking to it and whatnot, which is actually huge because Agnelli doesn't talk on anything contract related or anything like that. He's never really spoken up on it. And he did in this instance, basically saying that Dybala had a contract offer that would make him top 20 in the world. But I really doubt that because the only offer that had come out that we had heard about was an 8 million euro offer. And then it was later by Agresti said that essentially all he's got is something that's under bonus or with bonus under 10 million, which isn't top 20 money. So both sides are playing the game, but you have fans criticizing Dybala for even saying anything. I saw it as him trying to protect himself, because he is getting heat and a lot of backlash from media and fans over this 15 million euro number. And he's just saying it's bullshit is essentially what he said. And the other thing is too, something's got to give. Because if Agnelli is saying he's got a contract offer that puts him at top 20, well then that means they're literally only $1 million or $2 million away from finalizing a deal. So something's got to give, So I'm not buying it for a second. I personally don't think Dybala got an offer that's top 20. I think he's got something less than 10. I think he's somewhere around 8 million, which was the only one that was really put out there. And I think it's a take it or leave it scenario for him. I think Juve's ready to move on. I want to get your thoughts on this as we wrap up, and just, do you see either one as in the right or in the wrong? I personally think the whole thing is a mess and that they both fucked up essentially.
Yeah.
And it's bad for the club and it's bad for the team to have this looming around them right now. That's how I personally feel, but I want to get your thoughts on it, Luke.
So I guess going to grab something there, but as far as going to just the sheer figures, it's got to be somewhere in the 10 million, the 8 to 10 range. I think it's got to be on the lower end than the one that Agnelli talked about to be top 20 paid. Just because I don't think it would be necessarily the smartest decision. Right now he's not getting in. Are we gonna tie ourselves up with a big wage like that? I do think it is a take it or leave it situation because, I mean, again, if this was Dybala and the role he played, years ago, I think maybe the contract negotiations would go differently. But I think that I don't think necessarily any of them are right or any of them are wrong. I do put a little bit more. I'm less happy with Agnelli than I am with Dybala because it's a different position. It's being a younger person versus, and then just a soccer player versus being a very powerful kind of executive. So I think that the being professional and talking about money kind of is can be weighed differently based on their positions. But as far as it hurting the team, I think it definitely does. I mean, you look at Dybala on the sidelines, and he does look happy. He's engaging with all the other players, but how much until that turns, and you don't want to get you really want to avoid as much as you can negativity in the locker room or negativity on the training ground because these guys are all together. They seem to be a pretty good well gelling group. It looks like they get along well, but if some people are starting to become unhappy, that can spread and can be very dangerous. And I think especially with a team that needs to rely on each other and being a really good unit, off-field issues I think would translate onto the field. And to achieve some of our goals that we have for this season, we got to be a little bit greater than the sum of all of our parts. So I think that we got to silence some of the noise to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's kind of why I'm frustrated. I mean, not even position-wise of Agnelli being in power and Dybala being younger or anything like that. It's frustrating that it got to this point because Juve's going to need him if he's on the roster. The other thing is, too, if you were trying so hard to move him last offseason, why go out in front of the media consistently saying he's our future, he's our captain, we're going to get something done, like a deal and stuff like that? Like, stop saying shit like that because you're not backing it up where it counts. And that's why I fail to believe that there's an offer that makes him the top 20 paid player in the world. If there was, shame on Dybala because he should take it because that's but I seriously doubt it. I really, really do. I think, again, when you take into consideration where the team stands as far as the deficit goes, especially COVID affecting it, they see him as a chip that can help rectify that situation. The only issue is that the pandemic is still looming large, and there's not the revenues coming in. The deeper they go in Champions League, the better. They picked up €70 million from qualifying their knockouts, but that's really it. The revenues from stadium attendance, it's not there. It's not what it was. So I still don't see it happening, and that's why you still get into swap deals. So we'll see what happens ultimately, but thanks for weighing in on that one. And it's something that's going to be just kind of hanging over the team's head, unfortunately. And I think shame on the club because it needs to get handled. Whether you don't see him as part of the future or something like that, like, don't string the guy along. Like, let's get it dealt with. If he's not part of the future, whatnot, like, they should have just pulled the trigger and made something happen, or at least tell him, like, he is ultimately the guy, though, that can shut it down. And he did that last summer to stay. If he does it again, he goes into the final contract of his season. I think he's still got 2 more. I think it's 2022. I could be mistaken. It could be the next season, but it's gonna have to be on Dybala's terms. He's gonna have to find an agreement with the club. So it's a ugly situation. I don't like the back and forth of the interviews. I agree with you. It's just not good for a team. It's not good for a young team. It's not good for an experienced team, let alone a young team going through this transition with a new coach. It's tough. While it was nice to see them celebrate that goal Dybala scored, it's not natural. It shouldn't be like that. There's a big weight on him and this team.
Oh, yeah.
It's awkward, right? It shouldn't be like that. So we'll see what ends up happening. Thanks for giving your take on that. It's a great one. And thanks for joining me, man.
Yeah, no,
it's been an absolute pleasure. Had a lot of fun. We should set this up and do another match during the season. And we'll be doing some monthly recaps too with panels. So if you're into that, and everybody stay tuned because the first one's going to be this month of December. I'm going to have a panel of guests, and we are going to recap the month as far as Juventus goes and just talk about a ton of different topics. And we're probably going to do it live, which means that you can all take part and get your questions, comments in on the spot. And and it's December, probably be around the holidays when we do the recap. So maybe we'll all enjoy a few beverages together, some rum and eggnog or something. So we'll see what happens. But Luke, thanks again, my man. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Of course, we'll be back with another post-match podcast after the match this weekend against Parma. And keep an eye out for the Buonasera Bianconeri episodes nightly. Nice little nightcap of Juve news and opinions. As always, until next time, Forza Juve, fino alla fine.
Yeah.
Ciao.
Ciao.